What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Good to see each and every one of you. Today, we have Season 5, Episode 11. We got Mr. Matt Gleeson from Monty's Guitars over the pond, and it is hella late there. So everybody give a big round of applause and encouragement for this man staying up late.
Thank you very much. It's 11 o'clock my time. So this is I would have been in bed at least 2 minutes ago.
Oh, dude, trust me. Like, I mean, we're both dads. Like, once 10 p.m. hits, I start to turn into a pumpkin. I mean, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
In fairness, when my kids were younger and they went to bed at about 7 o'clock, that's when I would go to bed.
I don't blame you at all. I remember those days. That period of time when your kids are that little, that first year is like a straight up blur. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember much at all. It's really weird how that works.
Yeah.
All right, well, enough about babies and about dadhood and all that. Let's talk some music. Now, let me tell you, I have been following your Instagram page for a long time.
Okay. I'm sorry
And well, here's the thing, dude. Like if you open up my phone and you go to Instagram, it's basically puppies and guitars. It's basically what it is. That's my whole feed. It's just
Yeah.
pure
Mine's similar.
pure happiness.
Mhm.
But and I said this in the description of this video just about like being looking forward to this episode because and we talked a little bit about this pre-show, but I feel like you're such a positive force in this world, in this guitar community. And I really appreciate that because it's hard to find people as open as you are and as honest and as like, here's the raw bits of this guitar. Let's kind of walk through this together. And because I've learned stuff from watching what you do it. And I am so scared to touch and work on my guitars, dude. I probably will never do it, but it's so inspiring to watch what you do. Is that like, has that become a joy as part of what you're doing in your career right now?
Yeah, I mean, from a showing people what I do point of view, I mean, even when I was an apprentice 20 22 years ago, that's depressing, but I was always customer facing, so I learn with people watching me, so there's no qualms, and I actually really love it because it's kind of, you can't hide. So yeah, I've made mistakes in front of people, I've done all that kind of stuff, and you know and that in itself is a learning thing. It's a hard one to to sort of like tweak, so you look at it as a learning thing. But um I think everything, doesn't get too heavy straight away, but everything in life needs to be kind of warts and all. And life, especially through things like TikTok, Instagram, that kind of thing, you see it's very easy to just see all the positives with everything.
Mhm.
And uh and you need balance, and I'm fully up for holding my hand up and saying I've made a mistake, because I've made a lot of them, and that's the only way you learn. And that's how I've got to. You know, I feel like an absolute like narcissistic nonce when I say this, but it's just like I feel like that I've got to the stage where I'm at, and the ability that I have within this small field is because I've made mistake after mistake after mistake, and then looked at it, learned from it, and move on.
Mhm.
Um, you can't if you dive into that and then get too into your mistakes, you're gonna there's no reason to be scared to try something. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you'll break it, and then you'll bring it to somebody like me who will fix it.
That's true. That's true. I know, and everybody tells me like, dude, you just got to work on like one of your old guitars that you just don't give a shit about. Like,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but what I think is interesting about what you do between like your shop and like your social media presence is just like being warts and all. But then like you've got, people like Mick coming in. You've worked with all these like famous guitarists who now trust you with their babies. You
Yeah.
know, that says something, man. Like, because I think like the making mistakes along the way and learning from it, it's the same as like I'm a songwriter. So it's like The same thing with like just writing song, 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 song.
Mm,
It's going to be a bunch of crap, and that's the
yeah.
fertilizer that will grow the good song, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so like, has that happened for you, like when you were apprenticing? Did that happen like quickly? Like, did this stuff come naturally to you that you were just like interested in it enough to like dive in?
I'm I'm a full-blooded geek when it that's it. And ever since I was a kid, I've been taking things apart, figuring out how they work, annoying my dad, you know, by taking his like travel clock apart and being like, "Look, I've laid it all out nicely for you on the floor." But it's just that kind of thing. But so I've always been very, very hands-on, for want of a better phrase. But like intellectually and that side of things, I've always struggled. I'm dyslexic as hell. It takes me like months to read a freaking pamphlet.
Me too.
I don't learn. I can't read something and learn it. I have to physically do it. So there's been that, but it's I also I've just found out recently I'm mildly autistic and I've got ADHD and all these other label things, but
Right.
um, which I think it's kind of driven me to be where I am today, which is fine by me. Um,
Yeah.
I I love I love learning how things work. I love then doing it and making it better. That's
Yeah.
the thing. So it's like, say, I've got a freaking passion. It's very weird, but I've got a freaking passion for soldering and making like looms and things and making them look really killer. I remember seeing when I worked at this shop called Chandler's, which sadly isn't there anymore, but it was the place in West London. Um, and they had like all kinds of things, all kinds of players coming through. The first customer's guitar I got to work on was Dave Gilmour's, um, which I'll get onto that in a bit. But we were seeing I think it was it Tyler and Anderson guitars, and they were just coming over like the Charlie had. Who's the guy who ran the workshop and stuff, and he was the one that went out to Nam and found all the cool stuff and brought it back and got some of those. And I remember opening them up and just being like, wow, this is not only on the outside, whether you like them or not. I mean, I do, the burning water Tyler stuff. I mean, it looks insane, but internally it's on point. Like every solder joint is just, there's one thing for that, and it's very particular and all that kind of stuff. And I I was just like, wow, I've got to learn how to do this, because at that point I was overheating the back of solder of like pot, caps, and just like basically just it was a pond. and
Yeah.
but it was just narrowing it down and sort of seeing how to do it well. And then once you get into that, it's just like, oh, if I can do that, we can make it better by doing this. And then and you just it's obsessive
Yeah.
compulsive.
I think you have to be that way to be in this industry, especially I feel like people could get away with some shady crap back in the like pre-internet days, like fixing
Yeah.
things and like, but like these days, like there's some really hip guitarists who are like doing their research now. So
Mm,
it probably feels like I gotta make this right. Like, so Daniel was just saying, no one in their area works on guitars. Need somebody like you to do something like this, but had to learn on their own because you don't have anybody to work on it. You got to figure it out yourself, man.
yeah.
Um,
It,
so I
it's
think
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think one of the things, I mean, don't get me wrong, freaking love the internet. It's brilliant and it's done amazing things, and like we wouldn't be talking like this, and my
Right.
business would be up and running and doing what it's doing without it. But the one thing that it's kind of changed is now we don't have that middle kind of guitar shop, which, I mean, there was when I started into my apprenticeship was 2000. I started, and that was in West London, and in a 3 mile, area.
Radius. Mm.
There, yeah, thank you. There was 4, 5 decent guitar shops with workshops in them, and because they could afford to, and the one I was in was the I think that was the last one to go, but now there's none. So
Man.
but what you do have is you have places that are massive, especially over in the UK. You've got these big places and these really small places, but you don't have that middle slot, which is filled by a guitar store that has all the good stuff, has some good vintage stuff, and can afford to run a decent workshop.
Hmm.
Um, so then there's people like me that leave those things, and you can start out on your own, and then you know go out from there. But that's the problem, I think.
Man. That's really interesting because, like, here it's funny. I can think there's one guy that I trust with my guitars in town
Mhm.
around Baltimore that I've gone to since I was 18.
Yeah,
Um, and he's like his own entity around town. But I can think of there's like a mid-level guitar shop that has a shop like I think they might be more prevalent over here. Maybe I don't know.
yeah,
But that's interesting that's like that over there.
yeah. It really is. And don't get me wrong. I mean, it's been I mean, it's been good for me, but
Right.
for the general public and the people that say you're not as geeky as, say, someone like me. That if I'm into something, I will deep dive into like forums and all these kind of things and find all this stuff. If you want something easy and relatively quickly, it's really hard, because
Yeah.
there's loads of, well, as you know, on the internet there's loads of misinformation and all that kind of stuff, and finding the right person is tricky. And yeah, it's 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 a pain in the arse is what it is. It's here over.
I'm so envious of people that know how to do it. And speaking of a friend, Curtis Mason loves your pickups. He hit me up today. Mason Effects. I don't know if you know about Mason Effects.
No, but it sounds like I need to.
Curtis makes dope ass fuzz pedals.
Okay.
Like amazing. And he actually, thanks Curtis, appreciate that. But he lives like an hour from me, and he's going to teach me how to solder. I'm going to go down and we're going to do a whole
Oh,
video about like
amazing.
how to. So post hanging with Curtis, maybe I'll be a little bit more adventurous with my guitars too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm so envious of you guys that can just like rip something apart and put it back together and it's better than it was. Um,
I just need to catch you on that one, because I've done a lot of ripping things apart and not even being able to put them back together again.
I guess there's that.
You did, but again, it's the same as anything. It's like songwriting. I've recently, again, I'm not going to get too deep real quick, but been going through some like deep, like self work stuff, which has then allowed me to get rid of a load of pressures on myself. One of which is the fact that every time I pick up a guitar and try and create something, I instantly think it's rubbish. I down myself. And for the first time, this kind of clicked with me a month or two ago. For the first time, I wanted to play something and create something musically, rather than default, which is I'll learn something. It's I want to create something, and then and I haven't done that since I was 12, maybe
Mm,
13.
wow.
So it's a long, 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 long time. And then now I'm kind of where you are with your soldering, with my songwriting, and I'm scared of it, and but there's that want to do it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
which I think, if now I've got that want, so I'm gonna do it, whether it sounds terrible or not. So I'm sorry, anybody who hears it, but
Nah,
I'm not
dude.
really sorry. But and also I've been speaking to guys that come into the work, and girls that come into the workshop, and since this has happened to me, as I said, I'm maybe too open, but I've been talking to other people about it. And there was a guy in last week, a guy called Mike Venart, who he was in a band called Oceanside, which they were big, and they had some hits in the noughties over here. Don't know if they got it over, went over your way, but he's now the main live guitarist for a band called Biffy Clyro. And that are great. And I mean, Mike can literally play anything. He's just like, could poke his eyes out, could still play whatever. He's just freaking genius. And hearing somebody like that say that he's on album 10, still struggling, that it's kind of like yeah, okay.
Yeah. Dude, I've gone through that too, man, like my cycles. And honestly, I mean, I probably wrote my first song when I was around 11 or 12.
Mm.
Let
What
me
was it
see, man.
called? Can you
And
remember?
it was called Blindfolded.
Nice.
It was terrible.
Yeah, mine
Um,
was called KC333, which was the serial number of my guitar.
it's an easy way to remember if it gets stolen, man.
There you go. There you go.
But it's crazy because, like, when you start doing something that young, and even now, picking it up and starting now, it's like I consistently struggle. And I told my wife, like, last week, I was like, I need to like have one night a week that I can go downstairs and I can work on music, because it needs to happen. Because I just put a record out in like right before COVID happened. I put a record out,
Great
and then
time.
I put yeah, I know, and then I put a couple singles out since then. But I'm like, I want to get another record together, so I'm gonna start working on it. But dude, there was a period of time I almost just gave up music, because I was like, I'm sick of banging my head against the wall. Like, it's like, what am I doing this for?
Mhm.
And then I met Joey Landreth,
Yeah.
and he was like, you should try open tunings. And then I wrote that last record I put out in 2019. And
Yeah.
he totally saved, I say this to him all the time, but he totally saved my musical life. Like, had he not been like, just try something different,
Yeah.
something that is totally out of your wheelhouse, you're super uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
just do it. And you know what it felt like? It felt like I was 12 again. Like,
Yeah. That's the thing. But I use this phrase all the time. It's you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
yep.
It's doing that. And just because you just actually I think it's still in it. But I've been getting like progressively more and more into, because I was always like a rock indie guy, but I've been getting more into things like country, freaking love pop. I love, all that kind of stuff. But I've been getting into, yeah, it's kind of out of tune, but like Dad Gad, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And it's the glorious thing with that. And again, is you can put the same thing onto anything. It's just so when I pick up a guitar, I instantly go to certain areas. But then if you change it, then you will do something different naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I think Elvis Costello, so it was like he said he would write songs on different instruments just because then he would make something different,
Yeah.
which is that's you, if you've got a creative brain, you don't want the constraints of sounds really really fucked, but you don't want the constraints of knowledge.
Yeah.
Really, if that makes
No.
sense.
That'll totally mess with you and put up roadblocks, man. Like, I'll even, like, if I'm on stage, because I play primarily heavily in improvisational music. So
Okay.
if it gets to the point where it's like my turn to blow, I will start, if I'm in a key that I'm super familiar with, I'll start it in like a register that I don't usually start in,
Yeah.
to make me go somewhere different
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
where I normally go. You know what I mean? So it's like little things like that, like, that you can just do to like spark inspiration or whatever. I find that stuff great, even when it feels like sometimes you're banging your head against the wall. I treat it like a video game from when I was a kid, where you get stuck on a place. Sometimes, like, all right, I got to put this down and walk away for a day, and then I'll
Yeah.
come back, and then I'll figure out whatever this Tomb Raider puzzle
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
No,
similar thing.
but
Uh,
even that, it's like improvising for me has always been, that's like a fear thing. Which is again is something I'm working on. Go to a jam night and jam. That's like I would rather cut my own legs off. you know, I I mean, don't get me wrong, I freaking love playing, and I've been in bands, and writing in a band situation is a bit different. But then I fell out of love with that, and I got a random call from an old friend saying, "Would I join this covers band?" Which, me being, you know, uh, in my youth, I was just like, I would never join a covers band because a covers band, my darling, is not fucking music. But no, it's I had the best 11 years of my life going around with 5 guys that we just had a laugh. I played the Royal Albert Hall for
Whoa.
fund manager of the year. I've never seen more coked up blokes in a room. Yeah, went to the Maldives, played for the Beckhams and like Gordon Ramsay and Abramovich and all those. You do these crazy freaking things, and we're playing Wham and Van Halen and Lady Gaga and all that kind of stuff, and it really opened my eyes to the beauty of that kind of thing, because I was as I have realized many of us are, I was a freaking musical snob,
Yeah.
for no good reason either. I was just like, I didn't like it because everybody else likes it, so I'm gonna be different like all my friends. And it was, doing that and seeing the joy on people's faces and realizing music is, yes, there is that kind of intellectual, experimental side of it, which I really want to learn. But there's also it's like some people just want to fucking escape and enjoy themselves, and that's okay too,
Yeah.
Um,
Amen. I mean, dude, I grew up. Pearl Jam is my favorite band, and like I probably already bucked
you
this
haven't you?
system. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I already probably bucked the system because they all bucked the system. I don't need this MTV Music Award kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I hear you. I mean, it's hard not to like when you really want to achieve something with music. It's hard to like not deviate from the norm, like
Mhm.
because you're trying to create your own voice too. So like
Yeah,
anytime people say that, I'm always thinking like, well, give yourself some grace because that was probably you trying to like find your voice,
of course.
So,
But
but
that's like, yeah, life experience and stuff.
yeah, totally, dude. So we jumped way ahead, but I wanted to no, it's my fault. I was probably too excited to jump into some stuff, but I wanted to ask you, I usually ask this the first question I usually ask everybody, but like so what is your like earliest musical memory?
That is the fault of my father, I'd say.
Okay.
But um, my dad he's an awesome human, but he used to play. Um, do you know Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds?
No.
You heard that? You should.
Okay.
It's freaking amazing.
I'm writing it down.
So he did, War of the Worlds, the book. It is War of the Worlds, isn't it? Yeah, think of the tripods that come down and everything. But
Yeah,
he
yeah, I
did
remember
that
that.
with music through the whole thing. And weirdly, my dad ended up working for Chelsea football or soccer team
Mhm.
um, uh, uh, over here, and Jeff was a fan of Chelsea, and they ended up meeting, and then my dad told him that I was into music, and I got a phone call from him, which was just like so freaking bizarre. But yeah, so it's that. Um, and he was also into a band called the Edgar Broughton Band, which were massive over here in the 60s, 70s, I think. And all that rock kind of stuff, and the Stones. And his dad was he was a Stones boy. He wasn't a Beatles boy. Um, and yeah, so it was primarily from him. I'm the eldest in my family, so there was kind of that. And then at the age of 5, I was sat down at Christmas, and Back to the Future came on the telly, and I remember sat there with my gran, um, watching this movie, which has has quite literally shaped my life. I have a black pickup truck. I skateboard and I play guitar. And,
Yes.
and also, there's quite a few people that call me McFry.
Really?
Yeah, and if you want to find me on like Xbox or Oculus, read my facts, McFry. Um, so and that was the begin. That was the real beginning. And I was obsessed with music. It was like I loved things like there's Michael Jackson, the Bart Bart rap. I remember a friend of mine at school had the cassette single, so I went over. I borrowed it for a weekend, and my granddad had a cassette machine that you could play on one and record on the other. Remember those ones?
Oh, heck yeah.
So I spent a whole day recording a whole tape of that one song, over and over and over and over and over again. It's that kind of stuff. And then I got into like, you know, just figuring out rhythms and stuff. And I'm constantly, although I found out recently that it could be kind of a neurological thing, but I tap all the time. I can't drum for the life of me, but I can body drum like a mother.
Yeah.
And so all that kind of stuff. And I love music just generally. And then it kind of grew. And then I went to, when was it? I went to secondary school or high school, and there was a guy called Andy Spriggs he had an older brother who had a Nirvana tape, which Andy brought into school. I listened to that, and it was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then it was Nirvana, Green Day, NoFX. It was like American grunge, more punk kind of thing. I was just like, I need this. And then I had friends. There's a oh fuck, what's it called? There was a guy at my school called Will. I can't remember his surname, but his dad was the manager at a skate place in the center of London, and they had like bands in all the time and stuff. And he made me a mixtape, and it had like Beastie Boys on it, and again more NoFX and Bad Religion and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like right into that, and it was great because it was I could listen to a record and I could figure out how to play it. Um, uh, Actually, I should have jumped back a bit before then. So at the age of 11 was when I got my first guitar and I started playing, but that was classical stuff. So I was, and because, that's the way it was deemed right, which is fair enough.
Right.
But yeah, and then it went into, I was just more into punk, and then found Radiohead, which
Yeah.
was a game changer for me, because that was the first thing that I heard, which wasn't power chords. It was more, there was more things going on. I mean, that we're talking, this is like Pablo Honey territory, so it's not like Kid A, but it was interesting. And I remember sitting down, which I've got to show you something in a second, sitting down and working that out, and being like, I have no idea what this is. And I went and spoke to my guitar teacher, and he was just like, you just use loads of effects and stuff. It's all just like, you don't want to learn that. It's like, I kind of do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was just that door. And then, yeah. And then the rest is kind of, I just went down a rabbit hole of that kind of thing, like and also stuff getting progressively heavier and heavier and heavier,
Mhm.
which, I kind of fell out of love with, and I've just refound, which is really cool. There's a band called, do you know Bring Me the Horizon? Have you heard of them?
No.
They're a kind of they started off as like a thrash metal band, and then they kind of realized that they could, have a bit more success if they went a bit, took a pop element basically.
Okay.
And so they did that, and they did it really, really well. And there's they did a gig for the Teenage Cancer Trust at the Royal Albert Hall in London with a full orchestra and full choir. I can't remember the name of the composer who did all the string arrangements and stuff, but it's one of the best gigs I've heard on record. I wasn't there, but it's just that kind of stuff.
Is there any footage of that on YouTube or anything?
Yeah, you can see the whole thing,
Oh, dang.
including behind the scenes stuff of the band talking about it, because the guy who did all the arrangements, I mean, they actually wrote separate new pieces of music for it, and then
Okay.
then that got me, because I spoke to a friend of mine, a guy called Gareth Johnson, um, he writes a lot of like library music and that kind of stuff, and is
Mhm.
just one of the best musicians I know. He can literally play he's freaking annoying. He can play everything, and it's all really good. And blah, nah, 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 Gareth's great, but he usually mixes most of the Teenage Cancer Trust stuff. So I stumbled across this gig and then phoned him up and was just like, "This sounds a bit too good for you. Is it you?" And
Uh,
actually, no, I didn't do that one. And then he told me who did it, and then went down a rabbit hole of this guy who's like mixed and stuff, and found another band called Architects, who did they're like again, it's quite aggressive, but they did a live at Abbey Road session, which and the same composer, same arranger did all the strings and stuff for them. And again, it's just like mental, it's just so
mm.
good. But then I'll turn that off and flip to Lady Antebellum or something.
Yeah, dude, I love when bands do that. Like, I actually, maybe this is a guilty pleasure, maybe it's not, but like, I really liked that Silverchair record, Diorama, that had all the strings and orchestra stuff on it. Did you ever listen to that record?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's good. It's a good one.
It's really good, man. Like, I actually should bust that out again because I haven't listened to it in quite some time. But when I first heard it, from Frog Stomp to then,
Hmm.
it's very different. But I really enjoyed it because I grew up on heavier music. Like now I'm kind of like listening to Derek Trucks and jam bands and stuff like that because I'm a dad. So now I play dad rock. But but it's it's
Don't
like
pigeonhole yourself, lad.
but you know what I mean, man. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I grew up on I listened to Pantera when I was a kid and like
yeah.
was super into that stuff for quite some time. And then I got into high school and I was like, my older brother listened to the Grateful Dead. I'm like, what's this? And then he exposes me to John Scofield and Medeski Martin and Wood and all these bands. I'm like, oh, I'm actually that sounds really cool. What's that?
Yeah.
How is he doing that on guitar? You know what I mean? So it just takes you in different routes. But that Silverchair record is so great. That just came to mind when you were talking about that. I was like, oh man, I gotta listen to that again.
Yeah.
Uh, so good. Um, so let's fast forward a little bit,
No
and
worries.
so post apprenticeship, like when you started kind of venturing out on your own and you started kind of carving your own name
Mhm.
around town. Um, you told me a beautiful story before we went on air about a guitar. I'm so curious. I would like you to tell that story if you don't mind again because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But like I want to hear about some like other challenging projects that were brought to you that you were like, So yeah, but tell everybody about this because this is amazing.
Okay, so that story was there was an older lady came to the store, and she had a beaten up classical guitar, which was, I mean, it needed a lot of work doing to it, like crazy amounts. And she said that her grandson had just taken up guitar, and she wanted to give this to him. And so I looked at it, and you know, I hate, as I said to you earlier, I can't, even though my accountant and manager would most probably kick me in the ass, I can't do something like that to people. I hate like fucking them over.
Hmm.
Um, so I was just like, look, what you should do is you can go to any music store and pick up a classical guitar for 70 quid, £100 or whatever that is in dollars, and then bring it to me. I'll set it up, get it balanced perfectly for him, and then give it to him, because that's going to be way more cost effective than doing anything to this, because this is going to be, we're talking thousands really, because it needed, the whole thing was warped, the struts coming off, and um, basically needed taking apart, everything flattening down, and then putting back together, which is all doable, and I've done it before. But you know, and then she said, "It's like, well, you know what? I escaped Poland when the Nazis were invading with this and a teddy bear, and I I want this to I want him to be able to play it, and me me being a I mean, I'll freaking cry at anything, but
Yeah.
it was it really touched me. My dad's mum um was a kid that escaped Germany for the same reason, so yeah, it wa- it was a genuine thing, and I was like, that's, yeah, definitely, I will do it. Just leave it with me. We'll get it sorted. Do it all for nothing, because you've been through enough. Not that I said that to her, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I also don't mean to say that I did it for nothing as like some sort of like ego boost or anything. But it's also selfishly, for me, I love have being given a challenge like that. So um yeah, it was really nice. And then she came, picked it up, a couple of weeks later, and just made I said said just make sure the fucker practices. She was freaking lovely, so lovely, and you know if you can get through that kind of stuff, you're gonna you're a stronger person than I am.
Yeah, man, it's crazy to think. My wife and I have only been to the UK. I've only been overseas once. We came over there for like it might have been our 10-year anniversary or wedding anniversary or
Okay.
15-year anniversary. And you forget how young of a country we are living in, like as Americans. And you go over in
Yeah.
all the history and stuff that is just across Europe. I mean, my grandfather was on the beaches in Normandy and survived and came home, thank God. Like, I don't know how that dude lived through
Yeah.
all that crap that he did. But and when you think about that, like what you say, like what that person has been through, like I have no way to relate to that. Like living in this cushy place I live in this young country where we're just
Like,
making stupid mistakes all the time.
yeah, no,
Um,
but I
you
have
know?
no way to relate really either. It's just I've studied the history, and I've had that weird fascination of World War and stuff, which many people do. And I've watched Band of Brothers, but but it's just
Yeah.
like, you when you hear when you speak to somebody that's actually been there, been in it, and is willing to speak about it, because that's the
Right.
thing with all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But my grandfather, who unfortunately recently passed, he was in Africa. Um but I mean, I don't think he ever actually said any, not he wouldn't tell anybody any bad stories, so I don't even know if he had any. It was all just funny stories, but
Yeah.
most people wouldn't speak about it. But it's yeah.
Oof. That was some brutal stuff over there fighting Rommel too, man. In Africa, that was some brutal stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, oh, crazy, man.
that's where
Um,
that's one of the reasons where Monty comes from, by the way, just saying.
oh yeah, tell me. Okay, tell me that story.
So, I was when I was working in this guitar shop in West London called Chandler's, and uh, there's something I'll touch on in a bit, but I just realised that the person who ran the store gave no crap about me or anybody who worked there, and my head, just because I all the other repairers had gone to set up another store, and so it was just me for a long period, and I hadn't learned everything by then, so I was literally baptism of fire. You talk about mistakes, there was like that was daily. and
Yeah.
and anyway, so I got a couple of my friends in that were interested in it, and kind of showed them the ropes and stuff. Although they knew stuff already. Um, and there was a guy called Leon Fairbrash who now has a company called Grizzly Guitars. He makes amazing fuzz pedals, by the way,
Nice.
and is like a very, very skilled repair guy. And him and I thought, well, screw this, let's just set up our own place. And we were going to set up a store, and we were asking around for names and stuff, and we both had fascination about the war, both like Monty Python. I was called Monty at school because apparently I was the posh one, although I was the poorest one a private school that I got, got a scholarship for. Anyway, blah 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 blah. But there's loads of these things, and it was just like it sounds so much better saying I'm popping down to Monty's than I'm popping down to 162 guitars. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And it kind of stuck, and then the shop idea went by the wayside, and we just kind of started Monty's Guitar Repairs, which we both did from our spare rooms. And it's like people that couldn't afford to get the work done at the store, I would literally I'd run after them out the store and be like, hey man, I know that this isn't the best way of doing things, but I'll do it at our price. And and it's stuff like that. And you guitar techs, I think, it's a lot like a hairdresser. So if you find someone you like, you'll stick with them. And I was just lucky enough to find lots of people that were foolish enough to like what I did. And that just kind of kept rolling. And then Leon and I kind of separated ways. He went over to East London because he's really cool and trendy, and I stayed West London because I'm a sad old fucker. And but I kept doing Monty's, he did Grizzlies, and yeah, I mean we're still friends. We talk all the time, but it just went from there. So it was just like, so Monty's as an actual thing started in about 2004, 2005, and then when my son was born in 2010, and that was the kick up the arse of like, you need to do something, because I'd maxed myself out time wise. Like, I was working 24/7. I still kind of work 24/7, but
Right.
when you're selling a service, you can only sell your time once, right? So it was like, how can I mean, we were just breaking even as a household. So it's just like, I need some more money, and I've got another mouth to feed, and things, prices always go up. So that's when we started looking into the product stuff. And I mean, it sounds really crap when I say it like this, but it's just like, I was like, all right, I've got no money. What's the cheapest thing to start? And what do I know? And it was just like, well, I can build a pickup winder for about 50 quid, and I've got loads of stats of pickups, and and people to ask, and people to try them, and all that. So it's like, well, I sold my motorbike, that gave me a couple months grace, and just rolled in and bought the Lola pickup winding book. Kind of did that, modified that a little bit, and then the rest is kind of history, I guess. I've got a massive box of bad pickups. And but it's, so that was that.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. Like you say, it sounds kind of crappy to say it this way, but like that sounds like a business model. It sounds like figuring out where your lane is and what's cost effective and how you can help. Because it's not like you didn't care about making something cool and making something for guitar
Oh, no,
players
no,
to
no.
use,
Yeah. But
So
that's always been the thing. It's just because I know the one thing that I am, well, there's many things I'm passionate about, and I always say the one thing I'm passionate about, but another thing that I'm passionate about is making sure that whoever is foolish enough, or trusts me enough really to spend their hard-earned cash on something that I have designed, or made, or whatever, is that I've put everything into it. And that's why our packaging is the way it is. That's why I spend so long freaking A/Bing stuff and testing stuff. And it's just, I want them to feel that it's like a thank you. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, man.
that's key to, I think that's key to business generally. You just want to be, I want to be, if the roles were reversed, you like that stuff. I like that stuff. It's like when you get a new pedal. How many times have you spent $400-500 on a pedal, and it arrives in a white cardboard box with no instructions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of you that's like, yeah, the pedal can sound amazing, but there's that psychosomatic part of all of us, that it's just, you might be like, but the guy doesn't give a shit. And
Yeah. Yep. But
which,
you do, and it's obvious.
yeah, but that's, yeah, no, I honestly do, because people out there have literally put food on the table and shoes on my kids' feet, and you know that's, I can never thank people enough for that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I'm drawn. I I say this because I feel like a lot of love in the guitar community, and I feel like that's why I'm drawn to you, and I'm drawn to people like Josh Williams when I bought his Mockingbird,
Hmm.
sight unseen, and it is the one of the best guitars I've ever played in my life.
Yeah.
Period. But I'm drawn to you guys because you can tell you give a shit. You can tell it matters. Like every little piece matters. It's like, and I know Paul Reed Smith is a gigantic company now, but when that dude first started, that's how he felt. He was
No,
like, every piece of
uh-huh.
this instrument matters,
Yeah, but
you know?
weirdly, Chandler's where I started. This is before I started there, but I got all the stories afterwards. They were the first shop in the UK that actually brought PRS in, and they would get them like as bits and then put them together themselves. It was that early on, and
Dang.
he really, whether you like them or not, there is no part of me as a repair guy that can slag anything off. I'm not a big gold fan. Don't like the flamey shit,
Mm-mm.
but from a construction point of view, there's not many better, in all fairness, and everything's so well thought out. Um, and hats off to the guy.
Yeah.
It's a
But
good.
it really lights me up to like and inspires me to see people like you and hear your story. And like that's why I love doing this show. I love hearing like the trials and tribulations that you've come through, the phoenix nature of rising from ashes, and and like and
Mm,
creating something cool and unique, man. Like, let me ask you here's a good question for you, because now I'm starting to branch out and think about putting different pickups in different guitars now.
okay.
And I never ever really felt that way. Like I would find a guitar, play it, love the way it sounded, right? So I bought a custom shop Strat about 3 years ago as a midlife crisis, and from Wildwood Guitars in Colorado.
I have to go to that store. I really want to go.
Oh, dude. Let me tell you this first of all. I've been a Strat guy my whole life. This is the first 335 I've ever had, and I'm falling in love with it. And my poor Strat is cowering in the corner right now. But but that Strat is awesome, and those pickups are great. But my buddy James owns that company, Rewind Pickups. He's in
Yeah.
Colorado too. And he was like, "Dude, we should put some new pickups in that Strat." I'm like, "I like them though. Like that's my problem. Like he's like, "You can always put them back if you don't like the ones that I build you." But what do you think? What do you think makes a great Strat pickup?
Okay. I mean, that depends on many things. Firstly, what the fuck are you after?
Right. Well, think about this. The thing that I like about Strats, and this is why I've played them my whole life,
Yeah.
is I like that hollow, throaty forward thing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I tend to go for. But like these pickups in this Mockingbird they're the tone specific Bloombuckers. So they're
Right.
like that PAF type thing. And I've never played through a pickup like that, but the attack of the notes are soft but still punchy,
Yeah.
not ice picky, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But
So
that's a good path.
it,
Well, it depends. It depends. This is the thing. I use this analogy all the time, but Sonics or anything like that, it's like it's it's kind of like spaghetti bolognese, right? Most people can make one, but everybody puts their own little twist on it. So you might put a bit of chili in it, chocolate in it, mustard in it, whatever the hell. I don't know. But you might like the one with chili in it, and I hate that, but I like the one with chocolate in it. And that's the only difference. It's just like it's all these things. So when it comes to things like PAFs, for example, I'm a telly guy. That's Televox. That's my thing that I've realized is my sound. So I've always gone to paths, for example, that have sounded like a big fat telly,
Yeah.
which is what the ones that you have, that those kind of, that's exactly that. When you're going Strat pickups, if you're wanting that like front end attack, it's tricky because there's so many ways of doing it. And like if you look at Fender through the years, they originally, it was just, they had, you know, well, there was magnets aside, it was just like fill the bobbin up was pretty much the instruction given. And then they slowly cut back, and then CBS came in, and then they made it, you know, they were cost cutting, which is fair enough. But that in itself changed everything. So they changed from a different kind of wire. The bobbins got more narrow. The magnets got more narrow. All of this, but the bobbin height's the same. But when you make a bobbin more narrow and closer into the sort of more powerful part of the magnetic field, what you get is more top and more snap and more attack, which is why, like if you take sort of Hendrix, for example, really bright amp, really bright guitar, long, dull, curly lead, put those all together, you get Hendrix.
Right.
But if you stuck his guitar into, I don't know, freaking like a Kemper now with a, you know, high clarity lead, it would be like, oh dear. But yeah, so it depends on the whole setup, which is why it's really tricky. And also, then you've got the whole thing of what gauge string are you using, what tuning are you using, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because the heights of especially single coils, they start, if they're too close to the strings. I mean, I'm sure you know, you get those wolf tone type things, but then you can find the ceiling of that. Say you're using, I don't know, tens, for example, you find the ceiling and then you down tune it to E flat, that ceiling changes. So because the string's more malleable, so the magnetic field's gonna affect it differently, or it'll be easier for it to affect it, and then your tone will change. Then
Crazy.
then you can go down. I mean, I've done it myself, because before I realized that's what happens, you go down checking everything, and you know, it's saddles, setup, strings, and then you've got pedals, cables, all that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, sorry, mate, it's the height of your pickup is just a little bit too. So, in answer to your question, I need to ask you some questions.
Just too many variables, I guess. It's like
that's the thing.
yeah.
Well, the key is to, first of all, before you do change anything, make sure your guitar is set up properly and everything is balanced as it is. Hone your tone that you want there. Once you've got your board all set up and your amp set how you like it, if you're still not getting anything, that's when you need to start looking at that final kind of 1 to 5%, which the biggest factor of in that bracket is the pickups.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this going on from, yeah, and then it sort of extrapolates out from that. And going back to the fact that I've left lots of money on the table, the amount of times that people have come in and go, right, I want a refret, I want new pickups, I want new bridge, I want new nut, I want new this, and I'm just like, let's just set the guitar up and see if that works.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, it does. And then you only hone it in when you need to hone it in. You know, use a spanner when you need a spanner. You don't use a spanner when you need, I don't know, a fork.
Right.
And yeah, sorry, I rant a lot, and that was one of them.
No. That's great. Now, because I mean, I think it's just such a journey all the time. You know this too. You're a musician.
Yeah.
Like it's just like constant. And I think I get married to the idea of things for a while. I'm like, I get precious about like, those are the pickups that came with the Wildwood Strat. I should leave them in and blah blah blah. And I like how they sound. They sound great. But you know, you can't take this shit with you when you die. It's like, why not enjoy yourself and experiment and have fun with this. You know, that's ultimately what we're doing as musicians, right?
Yeah. We I want to, when I go, if I'm lucky enough to be some old codger in an old people's home with somebody else's children coming to visit me because my own won't. I was joking. But um, if I'm lucky enough to get there, I want to be able to say wholeheartedly that I don't have any real regrets. I may have regretted things that, you know, have happened due to things, but it's, you know, try stuff out. You know, you that's you know, I don't know why I'm getting, maybe it's because it's almost midnight, but it's, you know, it's about just getting, a lot of the time you try stuff out just so you don't have to think about it anymore. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? It's
Dude, that's my brain 100%. You just dove into my brain.
no,
Yeah.
exactly, but that's key, and I have to do it to myself all the time. It's actually my sister, who is much much more in tune with pretty much everything than me, said to me that um, you have, I can't remember if it's 3 or 5 seconds before your brain kicks in to make a choice. That's your gut reaction to stuff, which is why now I know when I'm developing whatever, say just say a pickup for whatever reason, I put it in, plumb it in, I'll get it to sort of a rough kind of height and everything, and I'll know within the hitting the first chord whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
And whereas before I used to analyze it and overanalyze it and then pick it apart and give it a kick in and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it's getting to that point of being able to trust yourself, I guess, to know that that's right. And it's the same with like songwriting, as we were saying earlier. You know, or anything. In all fairness, tasting a fucking stew. I don't. You know, it's
Yeah.
if you go, that's good, and it's good for you, and you just hope that the rest of the people around the table like it.
Yeah. Well, man, I feel like what you're doing is so cool. It's so fun to see like all the stuff, the projects that you have on your table every day. And like, it's just, you know, it is, it really is. I truly mean that. It's fun. And it's fun to see when Mick swings through and you're working on something or whoever other famous people roll through and you're just like,
Yeah.
have you, here's my last question and we can keep this short because I want you to get to bed.
Oh
But
no, man, I'm fine. I'm fine. So if we can
okay.
carry talking for as long. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah, go. Sorry.
So who is the first person that you possibly got starstruck working on their instrument that you're like, I gotta nail this?
Mm. Okay, so there's 3 stories. So the first one, technically, it isn't really answering the question because I didn't know who it was when I first started. But
That makes it even better.
when I when I started my apprenticeship, I wasn't allowed to touch anybody's guitar, any customers' guitars, understandably, because I was really shit. And so I spent a year pretty much working on, you know, any guitar that came in, you know, like a new Strat or whatever, setting up guitars that had come in on sale or return. And then all of a sudden, one day, Charlie, the guy who taught me, who, if you want to check out a really cool store, you should check out Charlie Chandler's Guitar Experience. It's like tiny, but it's got all the cool stuff. Um, he gave me this baby Taylor to work on, and he said all he said was, it's been left in a summer house, and obviously it's got hot, got cold, got hot, got cold, and the neck's all mashed. So can you sort it out? And it's like, yeah, no problem. Just did standard stuff, got it all done as I've been instructed, sir. And then guy comes to pick it up. Don't think anything of it. He goes off, and then a couple of days later, Charlie gets a phone call, and it's and he's just like, yeah, because Charlie's like the calmest man you'll ever meet, apart from if you don't tin your soldering iron, and then he rips you a new one. But anyway, um, in he gets off the phone and he comes up to me and went, that was Phil Taylor, Dave Gilmour's tech, and he says that Dave really likes the Baby Taylor." And I was like, "Is that Dave Gilmour?" He's like, what the hell? And
Yeah.
so I picked up the phone and I was like dialing my dad as I was running out of the store, just like, "You'll never guess." And that's purely, that's it's luck, it's luck being in the right place, right time. I mean, that store is in the heart of where all these guys and girls lived. I mean, we had Elvis Costello, we had Mick Jagger, Pete Townsend, all these kind of people. In fact, the first Christmas I worked there, I was Chris Rea came in and was going on a little tour, and I was stood there cleaning his guitar leads for him whilst he was there talking football at me, and I didn't know anything about football because I don't really care about soccer. But anyway, so that was that one. Um,
Now, here's the thing, though. Money cannot buy that experience. Like the fact that you have that story still, with you this day, like no amount of money can buy that feeling that you had running out of that store calling your
yeah,
dad.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
amazing.
that story gets better actually, by the way.
Oh shit.
That guitar came back over and over because he would keep it in that summer house. And Baby Taylors, I don't know if you know them very well, but they've got the headstocks kind of got this funny joint that's kind of, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a multi-fingered joint thing. Anyway,
Right.
that kind of gave way, so we had to get a new neck in and switch that over, which I did, and then that happened twice. And obviously they didn't want the other necks, so I just was like, yoink, and had those, and they've been around they're in the workshop still.
Oh,
But when
that's
I was
awesome.
moving out of London, actually just before I was moving out of London, I was moving a chest of like drawers type thing, and I pulled it, and the freaking necks went kadoosh and hit me on the head, and it was like this, and I just had streams of blood. So
Oh man.
technically, you could say I've been beaten up by Dave Gilmour, but
That's
yeah,
great. That's
it was.
awesome, dude.
Yeah, there was that. But there was another one which we did. There's a guy called Joe Rubel who is songwriter, producer, and just very nice guy. He works a lot with Ed Sheeran, and he phoned me one day and said that Ed's um, uh, Ed's studio had burned down, and that everything. It was like he said it was like a Dali picture. Like the monitors were all like everything, and there was
Ah.
a Martin in there which kind of just about survived, which was given to him by Eric Clapton, who
Ugh.
Eric Clapton was the catalyst to get Ed apparently into playing guitar and that kind of stuff. And they sort of met at one point, became friends, and then Eric gave Ed this guitar. And Joe phoned me up and said the whole guitar looks like a lump of coal, apart from the back, which is where Eric had written to Ed from Eric, keep well, I can't remember what the message was.
Mhm.
Um, and so he said, what I was thinking of doing is, if could you buy, and because it was an Eric Clapton signature Martin, so could you buy another one, take the back off that one, put this one, switch the back. So I was like, yeah, we could give it a go, but came, but I was just like, just bring it in, we'll have a look at it. He brought it in, and the thing, I mean, it smelled like as you can imagine, it smelled like a bonfire.
Yeah.
And there was a guy working with me at the time called Tim Hughes, he's a really great tech, and he he just got a razor blade and started scraping back the black that was on the top, and he was just like, there's good wood under here, there's a lot of it. So he said to Joe, it's just like, should we try to see if we can get all this crap off and then flip it and turn it so it's all the original guitar? All the binding had melted. In fact, if you look, well, I don't know if you look in any of our like videos, there's like a jar, like a jam jar behind my bench on one of the shelves, which has the original Ed Sheeran like bridge pins and stuff, which were all like melted and withered. But yeah, so all of that stuff had gone. And fortunately, at that time, I had Tim working with me and a guy called Kevin Williams, who now does Providence guitars, which that he's doing great guns. So the three of us together kind of put this whole thing back together to
Man.
a point where, I mean, in all fairness, it sounded better than any other Eric Clapton signature I've ever played. And I've
Oh,
played quite a
wow.
few. Well, if you think about it, it's all roasted woods. I mean, literally.
Literally.
Yeah. And
Is it a triple O or a double O, Martin?
which one's the smaller one? I get confused. I think it's the triple.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
All
it's
right.
the smaller one. But it sounded amazing, looked amazing. Still, after, I mean, that took us 6 months, I think.
Wow.
Spraying took the longest. I mean, Kev at Providence he did all the binding and stuff, which that took a long time. And but then the spraying took even longer, because apparently the guys at the spray shop were like, so we spray things on it and it just kind of drinks it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But when it came back, it looked amazing. I'll send you some pictures of it. You can find them online, I think.
That's crazy, dude.
But yeah, there was that. That was amazing. But we weren't allowed to say anything, which I've obviously just said something. But
That seems like that was a while ago, right?
no, it was a while ago. And then so I didn't say anything about it, and I'm absolutely fine with that, because personally, again, it's the same as with that old classical guitar. It's more about it's it's more about being able to do it, and like, can we do it, and watching the guys, because I mean, in all fairness, it was less about me doing anything and more about these other two doing stuff. They did most of it. I'm just lucky to be able to afford to pay them.
But
But
you saved a memory, like you guys saved a memory, like a
yeah,
cherished
yeah, yeah.
memory, which is awesome.
But that's the
So,
thing. But then, yeah, so that's another one. But okay, the third story is the most recent, and personally for me is kind of the biggest. So I got a text on a Sunday afternoon saying, "Hi, this is Ed from Radiohead. I've heard great things about your pickups. I'd like some." And I instantly went, "Stop fucking about." You know? but deleted it, and because I just thought it was a mate pissing about, because they've done that before. But
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
I've been a Radiohead fan since as long as I can remember, and I was so anyway. This is like a few years ago, and that's when that kind of thing started. And then so Ed came in. He had some paths in his Les Paul, which he put on for his last album, like solo project thing. And then since then, his tech, who an awesome guy called Adam Cummings, has been kind of bringing stuff back and forth for him. And then since like lockdown and everything, Ed's been coming in doing stuff himself, because we've moved out of London. We're actually just down the road from his mum's, and like this kind of stuff. By the first time he came in, I had an afternoon, literally just sat. I was at my bench, and then he was sat kind of not very far away, and speaking to somebody that's literally influenced, musically influenced me a hell of a lot with the stuff he's done. And just chatting, which is like I was going to say, the 16-year-old in me, and to be honest, the 42-year-old in me was just like,
Hell yeah, dude.
you know,
Hell yeah, dude. I totally
yeah,
get that.
exactly. But then that he came in, and that was really cool that he trusted me with all that stuff. And he left his. I had to do a load of stuff in front of him, which was fine. That's not a problem. And then he left. He's got a 1964 335, which, I mean, that's my dream guitar. you know, hands down. He also left it with me for ages, and I was like, has he forgotten about it? There's part of me that's, I really want the guitar, but I kind of really want to talk to Ed O'Brien. What do I do here? Do you know what I mean? It was just one of those things. And but yeah, so then that he picked that up, but then he dropped some other stuff off, and he said, you know, I've got this new project coming up, and I just need to get these things in order. And there was like a 55 Strat that had been factory refinned, but not really well. And that's one thing I really like about Ed is he finds all those really kooky, funky, weird things. It doesn't have to be, you know, 100% accurate. It's just something he gets a vibe from, which is really cool. But then he was just like, right, this you can have complete free reign on. And he pulled out this, can't remember, I'm terrible with Rickenbacker models, but it was this Rickenbacker which had been heavily modified already. So it had 3 humbuckers in it. The middle 2 Bill Lawrence, and the middle one was a DiMarzio Super Distortion. Each of them had volume and tone, and then coil split, phase, and I think a kill switch. I can't remember. Anyway, so it looked like Swiss cheese. It had loads of holes in it potentially, and all this kind of thing. He was just like, look, I like the sound of P90s, but just do whatever you want. I need something to kind of just break me out. And I was just like, well, first of all, it's just like, it's really, really cool that the guy from one of my favorite bands ever is trusting me with his stuff and telling me that what he wants to do. But it's even cooler the fact that he's just given me complete free reign. You know, and it's because I could really screw this up.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So it's like, what the fuck do I do? And then because obviously he's Mr. Sonics, isn't he? He's like he gets that atmosphere creating thing. And
Yeah.
ages ago, I was working when my workshop was outside. I had my workshop was in a shed out the back of a recording studio called State of the Ark in Richmond in West London, and that was owned by a guy called Terry Britton, who wrote "What's Love Got to Do with It," "Devil Woman," "Just Good Friends" on the Bad album. You know, he done some crazy stuff, and again, he's like seriously cool guitar player and very lovely man. But we'd been working on some stereo pickups, and I'd binned them because they sounded too toppy. They were just really trebly, and I was just like, right, let's try this out and see if we can, and you know, get them good. Because now it's like so many years later, I know I'd like to think I know a little bit more, but so what I ended up with was, so he had a vintage P90 type thing in humbucker size P90, sorry, in the neck. So like our 54 kind of thing, but a little bit tweaked. And then full Monty humbucker sized P90 in the bridge, which, you know, would just hit the amp a little bit harder. And you could have those purely in mono and with like a telly kind of setup, so master volume, master tone. You could also then flick one switch and they would go left and right. So you would have neck out one side, bridge out the other, or, you know, just one out of one, whatever.
What?
Yeah. And then I made in the middle, which was the pickup that I've been working on with Terry, was a treble and bass stereo. So you could bring that in on its own as a mono thing, and because it's like a quad coil thing, and it's got a few little things in it, you can get it so it runs and it sounds like a really good Strat pickup, but silent.
Wow.
And you can also have it so it's in full series and it sounds just like, it's like Brian May with every boost pedal ever made on. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then you can flick it like that, and you get the top 3 strings out one side, bottom 3 strings out the other.
Oh man, that's cool.
And then I brought it back here because I've got like a stereo setup here, so because everything sounds better in stereo. And I was playing around with it, and I was just like, I'd made this piece up which had like an effect on the bass side, and was just like, well, I want to just flip it so I can then have that on the treble. So I then put another switch in, which means you could switch the bass and the treble around. So that was going, and you could mix these all in together. It was all kind of mixable. Everything was all working. And then so I got it done. It was working. It was sounding freaking amazing. I was just about to sit down because I'd videoed the whole thing, like the bits of to make a video about it, and I was just sat down to start filming and this is what it sounds like kind of thing. And then Ed was meant to turn up at 5. He ends up turning up at 3, which was just then, and I'm just like, oh no. He comes around the corner. I was like, oh man, you're gonna freaking love this. This sounds amazing. And it took me 10 minutes to get a sound out of it because all the switches were all around the wrong way. It was just like an absolute nightmare. But he was just like, do you know what? I'm just gonna video you talking about it. So I talked him through everything, and I got a little bit of footage. And hopefully we'll go down to see him at some point and get some more footage of it. But that was on the Friday. My birthday was on the Monday, and because I work all the time. My family kind of celebrated my birthday on the Sunday, so we went not we didn't do much. Just went out for dinner for lunch, and they got me a few things like socks that said "bring beer" and that kind of typical.
Yeah, typical dad stuff.
And then on the Monday, I come down, and they're all my son pops his head round, and he's like the grinniest little what's it, and he's just like, and I was like, what? And they put this, come into the dining room, and let's just see if I can get it down. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay. So I go into the dining room, and they say, okay, so we said that we didn't have anything else for you for your birthday, and we were lying. So I was like, that's all right, that's fine. And then they pull out of this record bag this.
Whoa! Did they all sign it?
No, it's just Ed. But
it looks like a bunch on there. So,
no,
dude, that's so
it's just like September. It was my birthday, and then happy birthday here's to another year around the sun, Ed O'Brien. And
how cool is that?
Which is freaking. I mean, as I said earlier, I cry at anything, so it was just like, oh
yeah, I would too.
That was like a massive influence in my life. So I then later on that day, I was like, I sent Ed a message saying thanks so much for signing that. It means so much and explained it all. And like in my first ever gig, we played Anybody Could Play Guitar and blah 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 blah, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of it, I said, so I really hope that stereo guitar is not giving you too many headaches. And then I got this message back saying, that was a pleasure. I'm so happy that album meant so much to you and did so much. And then in block capitals, it's like, I love the stereo guitar. It's opened new sonic doors for me. And I thought then, I was just like, I can die happy now.
Yeah, man.
It's just like, not that I have any want of dropping off this mortal coil, but being able to do that for somebody that did that for me,
man. Full circle.
Yeah. And the funniest thing was, I was actually walking to see my barber when I got that message, walking through the door, and he's a guitar player. And which is, to be honest, is why I go there. He's shit at haircuts, Tom. Yeah, so don't. I literally, when he turned to me and went, "What why the massive fucking smile? And I just went like this, and he's just like, no way. And it's
That's
it,
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool. But so those are the three stories that I've now wrapped up for 20 minutes. So
That's amazing, dude. So is that guitar already on something, or is it gonna be on something soon, do you
it's gonna
think?
hopefully be on something. You can see him using the guitar itself before I modified it on lots of stuff, but he's doing a new project with I can't remember the guy's name. The guy who co-wrote "Rolling in the Deep" with Adele.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know his name, but I know what you're talking about.
I think that. But anyway, that's what's going. That's the project that hopefully it will go on. Whether it goes on something else, I don't know. But yeah,
Mark
it was just
Ronson. It wasn't Mark Ronson, was it?
no,
He
no, it
didn't.
wasn't Mark
No,
Ronson. It was a
yeah.
guy. It was a producer who did lots of things like there's about lots of the UK kind of indie stuff in the noughties, like Maximo Park and people like that. And
Right.
oh, do you know what? I'll most probably go and
It'll
yeah,
come to you.
it'll come straight back, and I'll be like, yeah, it was that one. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's cool, and but in all in all fairness, speaking to people like that, and also being because I try and be as honest and as open. I'm an open book, and as I said to you before we started this, you can literally ask me anything. Um, you know, I'm trying my best to be as open as I can with everybody, and so part of that is that I get to speak to people like that and other people, and um, find out all their kind of stories and struggles with writing and this that and the other, and it's it's kind of an amazing thing. It's a real humanizing kind of
Yeah.
leveling. You don't feel so crap and mental.
And yeah, I mean, it feeds you, constantly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I do, and the thing that I think is cool about that too is that I'm sure you treat everybody like you would treat Ed O'Brien with how you do your business and everything.
yeah.
So,
But again,
uh,
that goes back to the thank you. It's I would, yeah, I make a thing, and it has always been this way that Monty's, as soon as you step into it, whether it's my spare room, a garage, a shed, or now a a unit, um,
yeah,
it's anybody who steps in, it's got to be a safe space, whether you work there or whether you're a customer, whether you're just hanging out. There's no judgment. There's there's nothing. I mean, I remember going into guitar stores, in London back in the day. Do you remember when the Parker Fly first came out?
yeah,
Okay, I made many people didn't like it, but I loved it. It looked like a Klingon battleship. I was just
yeah.
like, what's not to love? And I remember going into a store, and the guy was just an ass. Just
Mm.
like he's like, "Are you going to buy it?" So, well, I'm 15, and most probably not. It's about 2 grand, 3 or whatever it was, and he's like, "No, you can't even look at it." And it's just like, dude,
Yeah,
there's a I know. I mean, I know as a as a salesman or whatever, but there's that whole that's classic old school guitar shop, isn't it? It's like
yeah.
my band didn't make it, so I'm going to make your life hell.
Right, yeah. Barrier to entry, you know what I mean? It's like that's some nonsense. I mean, well, I can see it on you. I don't. This is my first time. It's our first time hanging out and talking, but I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see it on you in your presence online and everything, that you have a good heart and you work hard and you want to make people happy and making music, which is what it's all about.
yeah,
So
100%.
yeah. Real quick. So thank you to BV, my moderator here. This is the arranger from that special that you were talking about. So,
Oh, amazing. So,
yeah. Yep.
yeah,
So
freaking amazing.
BV always finds all the information. It's amazing. Great help in this situation. So, all right. So let's do this. Let's do the lightning round get down so you can go to bed. And so here, I don't know if you remember what this is. So I'm going to ask you 10 questions. They're
Okay.
like this or that questions. We're going to put a little 112 BPM on my little metronome here for some suspense. And you can tell me, you can explain your answers if you want. You don't have to. I love hearing explanations, but you don't have to.
All right.
And we're just going to go through this list real quick. First question. I'm changing it up this season. We're not doing Lennon and McCartney every time. This time we're going to do Black Sabbath or Jethro Tull.
Sabbath.
P90s or mini humbuckers.
Mini humbuckers.
Marvel or DC.
Yeah, I'd go comic books, DC, films, Marvel, I think.
Okay, I'll take that. Would you rather be in a haunted house or watching a horror movie?
Neither. Watching a horror movie.
Okay. All right. Here's a question that I've had constant debates with people about because of someone like Jerry Garcia, but effects on board in a guitar, why not? Or hell no?
Why not?
Okay.
It's the thing is, I've done it. I've built guitars like it for various people, and myself. In fact, this one here is the body of the first guitar I ever put together, and that was a
cool.
originally that has a Zfx fuzz probe, which you can see all that side mirrors. Sorry, it's was all there. Now it's just, this is actually the tester guitar. So under here is like a massive swimming pool route, which also that guy Tim Hughes I was talking about earlier, who scraped away Ed Sheeran's guitar, routed a penis into this part. So it's really nice. But so I'd say go for it. Just try again. Try stuff out.
Yeah. All right. For a snack, salty or sweet?
Mix. You got to do that.
Mixture. Okay. For a telly or a Strat, ash or alder?
Alder.
Okay.
Because Alder's more balanced, I find. And then you can tweak everything else.
I trust you. Indiana Jones or Lara Croft?
Oh, dearie me. It depends. If I've got my eyes open, I'll watch Indiana Jones. If I close my eyes, it's always Lara Croft.
Okay. Super reverb or twin reverb?
Super.
All right, and here's the last one. Sometimes it's the hardest, sometimes it's the easiest. If you could take, I might know the answer to this now, but like if you could take one record, all right, and erase it from your memory, it's like you've never heard it before, just so you could go back and experience it for the first time again, what album would that be?
That's tricky. If I say them really fast, can I have 3?
Sure.
Okay, so the OK Computer, Radiohead, Everything, Raw Data Feel, and Demon Joke by Ben Art.
Okay, cool. I'm not familiar with those last 2 records, so tell me a little bit about those real quick. Okay.
Everything is just, they're just a killer band. I've done a bit of work for them, and actually that podcast that I said I did with my friend Steve Crow, we interviewed the bass player. But anyway, they've got that whole Radiohead vibe, but there's this really cool pop sensibility that they do, and they have this thing where they don't just, it's not just guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. They all actively will put themselves into difficult situations musically to then create something.
Cool.
And this last record, which is that one, Raw Data Feel, it's the first one that they did all themselves. They've always done like the videos and stuff themselves. Like the singer, for example, apparently they got told that they had to release a music video in a month, but there was no budget. So the singer was just like, well, I've wanted to learn this 3D software, so I'll just do that and then put it together. And that's one called Arch Enemy, which is off a different album. But if you look at that and just like, I think it was done on the demo of the software. I can't remember exactly, but they're that kind of, it's like actual not only insanely creative, but hardworking, inventive people. And this last record, there was an interview with them, and the singer said, "Well, I was sick of writing about me," and because he would just write about his like feelings and what's happened to him and that kind of thing. So
Right.
he wrote, half of it was him, half of it was AI, which I may get this wrong, but I swear he said that he's not told anybody, even the rest of the band, what's what. And
That's cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And also, from just selfishly from my point of view, I was just like, well, if I can get a computer to spit out some rubbish, then you know, and that's
That's
it's
awesome.
amazing. It's just kind of, it's experimental, but like my kids love it. You know, it's got that element too. So it's kind of like, it's got that Shrek factor, if you want, for want of a better phrase. It's got like the real catchy, simple. Not simple's the wrong word, but it's that catchy stuff that everybody can love. And then if you want to get geeky with it, you can get so freaking geeky. Um, and yeah, so that's that. And the Ven Art stuff is this guy. Um, he he's just one of those insane musicians that's just, you know, you love him, but you want to hate him because he's too goddamn talented. And it's his. I really love like the interplay with all the different instruments. Everything's kind of interwoven, and he actually he's just done an EP. The name escapes me, but it's of like found sounds. He's the he's the, I think we spoke about him before, but he's the live guitarist for Biffy Clyro. And apparently he said that there was a couple of gigs were cancelled. They were touring the States, so Biffy flew on, and then the rest of them stayed with the buses and kind of just sort of drove across states. And he was just like, well, what the hell am I going to do for 2 weeks? And just recorded stuff on his iPhone. And he had a Fender, is it Supersonic, Acoustasonic?
Acoustasonic, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That and Logic, and you know, a few things in like in the box, and just made some stuff up. And it's 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 I love it when you can see somebody that can literally take, you know, almost nothing, you know, and turn it into something that, I mean, that is just is beautiful. And that EP is that's my like chill out, got to answer, you know, I've got some difficult emails to answer, put that on. And then you just,
Yeah, man.
and yeah, and again, that's a beautiful thing. So but Demon Joke is a great way into his stuff, I'd say.
Okay, I will check it out. I wrote down, there's 4 things I wrote down to listen to tomorrow, so I will hop
Enjoy.
on that, my friend. Matt, dude, thank you so much for staying up late. Let's pop up, BB's popping up your Insta account for people to follow that, of
Thanks,
course. And then also head over to the website too if you want to learn more about pickups and everything that Monty's Guitars does and will do as well. It's a good place to get some inspiration about music in general, man, and guitar maintenance, you
man. Yeah,
know. So, but dude, thank you so much for staying up late and hanging, man. This was an absolute pleasure. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for another 3 hours, dude, but you need
yeah,
to go
I'm
to
kind
bed.
of getting those vibes. It's if you ever want to chat again, man, I'm here.
Yeah, man, we'll do it. We'll do it. I mean, I've had people on multiple times. I mean, there's so much ground we can cover, you know.
Yeah.
But dude, thank you again. Anything else, anything new coming that you want to drop on the people that to keep an eye out for? That's what you guys got going on.
We've got some really exciting signature stuff coming out very soon. And some new wide range pickups, which are finally coming out, which I've even managed to get covers with Monty's on, which has been like, I've literally been dreaming about that since I
Oh
even
man.
contemplated this. So it's yeah, it's, for me personally, it's, you know, it's freaking exciting.
Dude, congrats, man. That's killer. It's great to see something come to fruition. That's killer.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, dude. All right, everybody. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time.
Laters.